If you've ever looked at pretty pictures of space, chances are you've come across images from the Hubble Space Telescope. And this incredible instrument has been orbiting the Earth for 30 years now. So to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Hubble, let's look at the instrument a little bit and look at the fantastic image that's been produced to celebrate this anniversary. Serious planning for Hubble started in the 1970s, and it took about 20 years to go from design to a completed telescope, which was launched on April 24, 1990. Hubble was launched into a low Earth orbit, around about 540 kilometers above the Earth's surface, where it orbits around the Earth about every 95 minutes. And over the last 30 years, Hubble has orbited the Earth around about 165,400 times. And if you stretch that distance out, you would see that it's traveled over 7 billion kilometers. Hubble, of course, has had a bit of a troubled history. When it first got into orbit, the images from the Space Telescope weren't as good as what people were hoping. And this caused a lot of confusion and troubles until they worked out that the mirror was actually misshapen. But luckily, this was able to be fixed with a service mission, where they installed some new optical elements and some new battery packs and things like that. And over the subsequent years, there were a few more service missions that went to Hubble, swapping some instruments out, replacing components, and giving it boosts in its orbit. But since the space shuttles have been retired, no more services have been possible. Aboard Hubble, there are cameras and spectrographs. The cameras are used, of course, to take the beautiful pictures that we see, and the spectrograph are used to analyze all the different kinds of light that objects emit. The Hubble itself is a pretty small telescope. It's about 2.4 meters in diameter. By a ground-based telescope standard, that's incredibly tiny. But Hubble's power comes from it being in space. Without the atmosphere to obscure or distort its view, Hubble can see extremely well. Over the past few decades, technology has meant that ground-based telescopes have started to catch up to space-based telescopes. But still, Hubble is a frontrunner in its ability to take extremely precise images. Science-wise, Hubble has been useful in pretty much everything. It's a fantastic instrument, but perhaps one of the most interesting pieces of science it's done is the legacy field. This started with the Hubble Deep Field and the Hubble Ultra Deep Field, where they looked at seemingly blank patches of the sky to just see what might be there, and Hubble found that those blank patches of sky were filled with thousands upon thousands of galaxies. It just goes to show that wherever you look in the universe, it will be brimming with stuff to see. Now let's look at the incredible 30th anniversary image of a nebula region around about 163,000 light years away from us, near the Large Magellanic Cloud. In this image we have two nebulae, NGC 2014 and NGC 2020. Let's start by looking at NGC 2014. This nebula is actively forming stars, and if we look at the center we'll see a number of blue stars. These stars are at least 10 times more massive than our Sun, incredibly hot, and blowing out lots of stellar winds. These stellar winds have sculpted the surrounding environment, and the light coming from these stars has heated the nebula around them. This region here looks blue because oxygen atoms have been heated up to around about 11,000 degrees Celsius. The rest of the surrounding nebula, this red color, tells us that there's hydrogen and nitrogen hiding around in this gas, waiting to make new stars in the future. Now down to the bottom left side of this image we have NGC 2020. Now this nebula is actually produced from a single star, this really massive blue star. Similar to those other stars we were looking at before, this star is also relatively young and has expelled enormous amounts of material, which we see glowing in this blue light. Although this image is incredible, it's just a sample of what Hubble has seen over the last 30 years. And it's going to keep seeing things like this well into the future. And I'm excited to see what awesome new things we're going to learn from Hubble, and of course the pretty pictures that they produce from it.